Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
So we found you through a travel blog.
Yep.
What was the travel blog about?
So our blog is www.veganwithoutfrontiers.com, which is basically our travels of myself and my friend from London to Cape Town via Europe and through a bit of the Middle East and then down through Africa.
Wow.
With the aim of seeing how far we can go as vegans. There's two sides to it really. Firstly, it was a case of I've been vegan for 25 years, and it's always just been something in the background, and it's never really stopped me doing anything.
Yeah.
So the first part was something positive about wanting to show people out there you can, do whatever you like. Being vegan is not difficult.
Yeah.
After all of these questions, that must be difficult. What do you eat? All of the questions you get. I think after a while you get fed up with answering those questions. So rather than just continue answering the questions, it was a case of just lead by example and see what we can do. And the other part of it was to go and expand our knowledge of what it means to be vegan outside of this, well-off Western world that we live in.
Yeah.
And to meet vegans around the world.
So what were your findings about being vegan, maybe other than the Western world?
Firstly, it was a bit of a letdown in some ways, in that there wasn't any problems to write about. We didn't get to really write about all the difficulties of being vegan on the road, because wherever you are in the world, there's fruit and vegetables.
Yeah.
In some places where there's not very much fruit and vegetables, that's the least of your problem, because there's just not very much food. So it wasn't difficult. We had other problems. Living in a car with one person for 6 months is a bit of a intense environment, and travelling through parts of the world where there's no roads, where you're in the wet season. In Ethiopia we had to go through a flooded, muddy river where the chocolate-coloured water was halfway up the doors on either side.
What's the best discovery of food you found from other countries?
I think most things come back to Ethiopia. Ethiopia it's a country of contrasts. On the one hand, they have some of the best vegan food in the world. It's really easy to eat vegan in Ethiopia because all of their fasting food. You just go to a restaurant, or they have restaurants and hotels, but any food you buy, you just say, well, fasting food, because that is usually completely vegan. Sadly, when they finish their fasting, they then traditionally slaughter anything that moves, and so you get the two sides of the traditional food. But yeah, teff, injera with traditional Ethiopian food. You can get it in London now. It's quite popular, but in Ethiopia, obviously, it was pretty special.
Did you make any discoveries or epiphanies while you was on your travels?
I think it was a constant learning as we went. In terms of, some of it took a little bit longer to sink in. So that when I've come back, I've looked back at the great food that we had, some of the sights we saw, and come to realise that even in London, we have an effect on the whole of the continent. So I mentioned that teff flour, so the injera in Ethiopia was one of our favourite foods. And the fact that it's now becoming popular, there's all sorts of books and literature. It's sort of the new quinoa.
Yeah.
becoming very popular, but the result is that the price of this Ethiopian staple food is going up, and there's actually, it's becoming a scarce resource in some cases. I don't know how bad it's actually got yet, but it's got to the stage where price is making it expensive for the local people in Ethiopia who rely on it as their sort of their main food. So I mean, you can be vegan in London and still have an impact on the rest of the world. Obviously, it's worse if you're a meat-eating Westerner. I mean, in Botswana and Namibia, in some ways it's a country of contrast. There are vast areas of natural wild landscapes, but most of these landscapes are used for beef production, and a lot of it is beef production for export to the EU. And one of the famous issues with this is they've actually built wildlife fences across the Kalahari to prevent the wildlife spreading from one area to another and spreading foot and mouth disease.
Right.
The secondary result of this, if they prevented wildlife from migrating, and so they could no longer migrate from drought-stricken areas into where the rains and where the water is, and large numbers of zebra, for example, died of starvation.
Yeah, I heard about that. Awful.
So I was looking. I mean, it's one of those things. You travel. There's some beautiful scenery. You see some fantastic things. The wildlife in Africa is something else. Seeing wild lions just minding their own business under some bushes next to a dusty track is pretty special.
In one of your blog posts, you mentioned about the need for us to control the population. So could you explain more about what you was trying to say?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that became obvious as we travel through Europe. We're used to cities, countryside being nice and ordered. Ethiopia, I think, was where it first came. It struck us. You couldn't move wherever you were in the country, whether you're on a main road with a surfaced road or in a dirt track up a mountain. I mean, we drove 300 kilometres through the back roads of the middle of nowhere, but you couldn't go more than the distance you could see without there being people on the road, or walking usually with goats and cattle, and it's usually little boys herding the cattle. And the people don't have many resources, but there's a lot of people. And the more developed countries get, the more the wildlife is restricted and excluded from vast areas of the country. I mean, I mentioned the number of lions in Africa. There's 30,000 lions in Africa, and over 1.1 billion people. Now, we've sort of voted ourselves top of the food chain. Most of us are not vegan, but even if we are vegan, you go and buy a bottle of South African wine. That wine is grown on neatly manicured vineyards that used to be the range of elephants and are now ordered farmland. So, I mean, on the one hand, being vegan reduces the impact of our population. We could sustain ourselves and expand the population a little bit more if we were all vegan. What I found myself asking was, at what cost to the natural world? Are we basically being that speciesist that we say, well, this is our land. It's for us. We'll grow our food and we'll keep all of the wildlife in giant zoos, basically. So yeah, I think an excerpt from one of my blog posts has actually been posted in the backwaters of the Population Matters website. Because I tried to bring together the common aims of, it's recognised that there is a huge human population and it's causing a lot of impact just by resource use. But they don't want to be told that maybe going vegan is a solution to their problem. I'm not sure that vegans always take kindly to being told that actually we don't have all the answers. Being vegan isn't a magic wand. It seems to me it is the least you can do. It is the basis of everything. And as a vegan, most of us have had that moment of going, you know what, I'm looking at myself, what I'm doing, whether it's saying, yeah, I'm wrong, I'm going to do something about it and to change my way of life, or whether it's just recognising there's a better way. We've taken that step. Most of us were brought up not vegan, and we've made a change. I think it would be a shame if that capacity that we've obviously got in ourselves is the last time we use it. I don't actually have any answers about the population thing. I don't have any children.
Yeah.
Even if we all just continue, for example, if each couple just has 2 children, we'll still expand the population because we're all living longer. And if we're also at the same time increasing how much, our quality of life, we're using more and more resources.
Do you think we should simplify the way we live?
I think that'd be a good start. A lot of us, I think, we're trapped into the economic system that we've got. We're in the middle of London. It's the amount of money you have to earn to be able to live and work here is quite staggering in some ways.
Are you involved in any social justice movements? Are you a bit of an activist?
See, I haven't been for a long time. Back in the day, I was involved with a small sort of animal rights. I grew up in the countryside in Wiltshire, so it was sort of unofficial hunt sabs. But I'd sort of, I'd fallen back into being the roadie, so to speak. My wife was the most, she was the star. She grew up in Russia in the end of the sort of the Cold War era. She had a pretty hard time, but she was the one who was out doing upcycling of CD cases into jewellery.
Oh, cool. And
she supported running a vegetarian and vegan forums and sort of support group for vegans and vegetarians in Russia. Trying to bring your children up vegan will get you the attention of the authorities, because you're not conforming.
Is it still like that today?
I think it's there's a lot more prejudice. There's a lot more. If it's the sort of thing that you will get hostility from other people. I didn't get to see most of the stuff, but there was a lot of negative and hack attempts on the forum because.
Wow. Being vegan is sometimes seen as extreme. So, what's the most extreme thing you've done in your life?
Extreme? I don't know. I don't consider a lot of things that I've done extreme, but people sort of do. I mean, about the time I went vegan was back in the beginning of the 90s, and about that same time, bungee jumping had just been invented. I'd seen the world's first bungee jump on the local TV because it was the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol,
Wow.
1st of April 1979. I'd seen it on the telly when I was about 10 or 11, and looked, and I was a bunch of idiots. Roll on to the beginning of the 90s, and one of my mates at uni came out. He said, "I'm going over to France this weekend. I'm going to jump off this bridge on a bit of elastic." I don't know what happened. My brain just went, "I've got to do that." I'm scared of heights.
Wow.
But I was a bit skint at the time, so I couldn't afford to do it. So I organised a bungee jumping trip for RAG, and it went really well. And I basically carried on doing that. In fact, next month we're doing another one, going over to the same place. And I ended up signing up to do a round the world yacht race. That was 4 years of training, and ended up sailing halfway around the world, got around Cape Horn, across the Southern Ocean, before having to get it off in Australia because I'd injured my leg and messed up my finances and needed to come home. You'll see if you look at the blog, there was 3 bungee jumps on the trip, one in Switzerland, one off the Victoria Falls, and then the world's highest bridge bungee in South Africa.
Wow. So have you conquered your fear of heights?
No. I've just got an autopilot now. It's like if I'm standing on the edge of something and someone behind me starts doing a countdown, it'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'll be in the air.
Wow.
Just make sure nobody does that when I haven't got a bungee jump. So bungee.
Do you use that autopilot in other areas of your life?
I don't know. I think so. I think it's just having realised that it's just a matter of one step after the other. I mean, this last driving to Cape Town, we were in many ways just really quite unprepared for it. But follow, okay, what do we need? We need visas. We need a car. We need to.
Yeah.
We set off. We got there. Yeah, I mean, part of all of this, I think, I've come to the realisation that there's something about vegans that we get a lot more than you'd expect, a lot more vegans than you'd expect, coming and doing random bungee jumping trips with total strangers. I think it's part of that ability, that psyche that allows you to just get out there, go and do what you want to do without paying too much attention for what your mates want to do.
Did you meet any interesting vegans on your travels?
We did. I mean, we'd sort of done a bit of research first. I think some of the we had a really good time in Slovenia. Ljubljana is probably the best European city for vegans that I've come across.
Wow.
There's a whole range of little vegan cafes and restaurants there. I particularly remember there's a frozen vegan cake shop, as in sort of ice cream cake.
Wow.
That's quite nice. But Slovenian vegans are quite an active group. There's an Ethiopian vegan society, but it's basically one guy called Mesfin, who is I think he's still in South Korea at the moment. But when we met him in Ethiopia, he was the enthusiasm he's got is fantastic. He's sort of single-handedly turning Ethiopia vegan, I think.
Is it working?
Sorry?
Is it working?
Not yet. But it's good to see people making that. I mean, it was just really nice. He enjoyed meeting us. We enjoyed meeting him. And guys in Zimbabwe, in Harare, who have got a vegan restaurant and food shop. They've got a little bit of a plan to turn the Harare police force vegan by pointing out the health benefits. They've got a lot of they want to keep their police force fit and healthy and well and alert, and they're getting somewhere there. I think part of that is there's a sort of affluent part of Harare society that's open to some of these newer things.
What influenced you to take the final steps to becoming vegan?
The Animals film. It was a bit weird. It was towards the end of my being at uni. I just had some friends who suggested I watched it. I watched it. The next morning, I, slightly scared, told my girlfriend that I'm going vegan. I was expecting to get a bit of, but she'd watched it too, and we both went vegan overnight.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was just, I don't know. I don't think you can't persuade anyone, but sometimes when you're ready, you just need that little bit of a push. And I guess it was the Earthlings of the 80s.
Do you have any tips for people that want to go vegan?
Find some friends who are. It's always, you make the decision on your own, but it's good to have some positive reinforcement. I mean, Vegan Society obviously provide a lot of resources, but go along to a London vegan meetup or something, and vegans are just like any other people. It's not like we're all exactly the same and we'll all get on.
Yeah.
But it's good to have people with something in common, especially if you're making those first steps.
That's great. Thank you, Jonathan.
That's cool.